subscribe to Facebook. I also use WhatsApp. I have had no monetary transaction whatsoever with Facebook or any of its affiliated. I am the co-author of these two books, which was published by myself in April 2019. The English version of the book is called The Real Face of Facebook in India. The subtitle is How Social Media Have Become a Propaganda Weapon and Disseminator of Disinformation and Falsehood. It was written with Cyril Sam और इसका हिंदी भी एक संस्करण है, हिंदी में भी अनुवाद क्या है, इसका नाम है फेसबुक का असली चेहरा, कैसे सोशल मीडिया प्रोपेगेंडा का हथियार और फर्जी सूचनाओं के प्रसार का माध्यम बन गया। और ये किताब मराठी में भी अनुवाद करके मुंबई में शब्द किताब में।
Is this the copy of the book? जी।
I bought about 9 copies of the book for your committee and for anybody else who's interested.
I will first begin with the excerpts of the book before I come to certain news articles that have been published in the leading journals. I am reading an excerpt from your book, page number 58. Before the 2014 elections, the BJP was Facebook's only major political client in India. Ankhi Das worked closely with Joshi and made regular visits to Modi's office in Gandhinagar.
Joshi, in this case, you should clarify, is Dr. Hiren Joshi, who is the
I'm reading an excerpt from the book, page 58, written by you. The relationship between Facebook and the Modi campaign grew deeper following his electoral victory in May 2014. 2 days after the election results were announced, Das wrote a gushing op-ed article in Quartz India about Facebook's role in Modi's victory. I repeat, Facebook's role in Modi's victory. What kind of allegiances that you think Ms. Das has towards the BJP? What is her relationship that you describe so vividly in the book?
What we have written in the book is that not only Ms. Ankhi Das, but her colleagues, including persons like Shivnath Thakral, have been meeting Shri Narendra Modi even before he became the Prime Minister of India, from the time he was Chief Minister of Gujarat, and played an active role in training supporters and workers of the Bharatiya Janata Party on how to use Facebook. Now, Facebook, for them, you could argue that they are a commercial entity, and for them this is business, and they would do a similar kind of exercise for whoever is interested. But what we have argued in the book, and there are many dozen examples, that Facebook has not been a neutral, agnostic platform. It has helped some people more than others. And those who are willing to pay Facebook naturally get more help because they are a commercial organization. They want to maximize their income, they want to maximize their revenue, they want to maximize their profit. And it is not a secret when I say that the Bharatiya Janata Party is the richest political party in India. So at one level, whereas the Bharatiya Janata Party has been able to make use of the social media, perhaps better than other political parties, it has also been a beneficiary. In fact, we spoke to a large number of people who were Shri Narendra Modi's advisors, and one particular person who is quoted in this book, we asked him at one point of time, who helped whom more? Did Facebook help the Bharatiya Janata Party more, or did Bharatiya Janata Party help Facebook more? And his reply, and his name is Shri Vineet Goenka, he said, you could say we helped each other. So what we have argued in this book, and before we wrote the book, we wrote a series of about 5 articles which were published in the Newslick portal to show that this particular platform is not neutral. They have been complicit, and we use the word complicit, in promoting the interests of Shri Modi and his supporters in the Bharatiya Janata Party and the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh.
Is it only because of one particular individual that I just named from the excerpt, page 58 of your book, or you think apart from her, Ms. Das, as you allegedly mentioned in your book, there are other members, senior officials of Facebook India who are, as you say, hand in glove or have an understanding with the Bharatiya Janata Party?
We don't say, I don't use the word hand in glove, but we have named two individuals besides Ms. Aki Das. We have also named Shri Shivnath Thukral, who worked very closely with Dr. Hiren Joshi from the time he was Shri Narendra Modi's advisor in Gandhinagar to the time Shri Hiren Joshi moved to South Block as Officer on Special Duty to the Prime Minister of India as his information advisor, as his OSD, Officer on Special Duty, and he subsequently has his information advisor. We also name a number of other people who are part of the Bharatiya Janata Party, their network, who are part of the information technology cell and others. A whole lot of people from Mr. Amit Malviya to Shri Arvind Gupta and many others. There are dozens of names. Earlier it was one Mr. Rajesh Jain. We have in this book, and I would urge you to read it, you will find many names of individuals. We've named them and we reached out to all of them. Okay. To get their version.
Since you specifically mention on page 58 Ms. Aki Das, what do you think are the repercussions of having somebody head the public policy wing of a big institution like Facebook, which has such close links, affiliations, and as you mentioned, she wrote a gushing article in Quartz India after Modi's 2014 victory. What do you think are the repercussions of having a person like that as you're at the helm of affairs, particularly with regards to taking action against hateful content and inflammatory content that could incite violence among communities?
I would need to give you a long answer to this. Sure. Ms. Aki Das not only wrote immediately after Mr. Modi's election, she again wrote another article which is available on the Prime Minister's website, saying how he has benefited by the use of Facebook. There are 2 or 3 points I believe that need to be flagged. Facebook, and when I say Facebook, it is not just Facebook, but it includes WhatsApp, and it also includes Instagram, because this is a part of the same organization. It is headed by Shri Mark Zuckerberg, who's all of 36 years old. The organization, the company itself, was established a little over 16 years ago. It is one of the world's biggest corporate conglomerates if you go by the ranking in publications and websites like Fortune and Forbes. So it is one of the biggest companies or conglomerates of this kind. They have a virtual monopoly on the social media platforms like Facebook and Instagram. They use 3 sets of arguments to justify why whatever content is put out on the internet on their platforms they cannot disclose the identity of the people who are putting it out. It's called end-to-end encryption, and they also invoke the First Amendment of the Constitution of the United States of America, that is the right to free speech, and also issues like privacy, Nijita, to say that this is our technology. And let me illustrate this point by a few examples. In Rajsamand district in Rajasthan, Shambhu Regar, who is currently behind bars, killed a Muslim laborer from Bengal, and that gruesome, horrific scene was videographed and shared widely on WhatsApp. But when they were asked why, who is putting it up? Who is give us the name of the mobile number of the person who has filmed it and put it out, Facebook says, no, our technology does not allow it. Let me make a very categorical assertion over here. Over the last few years, I should say over the last 6 or 7 years, almost each and every instance of mob lynch in India, in different parts of India, in Jharkhand, in Karnataka, in Uttar Pradesh, in Rajasthan, behind it, there has been a WhatsApp message or a Facebook post.
That's a very serious.
I'm making it with all responsibility. I've written an entire book on the subject which has not been contributed. I'll go further, if you'll allow me, sir. I will say in the recent past, virtually each and every Hindu-Muslim conflagration or riot or conflict that has taken place, whether it be Muzaffarnagar, whether it be northeastern Delhi, whether it be Bengaluru, there have been WhatsApp messages and Facebook messages and posts behind it. I will add that we see a trend in different parts of the world, and if you will give me a few minutes, the United Nations, an official of the United Nations held Facebook and WhatsApp responsible for spreading hatred, contributing to the genocide of Rohingya Muslims in Myanmar, for which Facebook apologized. In New Zealand, in Christchurch, New Zealand, a gunner killed over 50 people outside 2 mosques, which were shown on Facebook live. Only 2 examples. I've given you one from India. What the recent report of the Wall Street Journal, which was published on the 15th of August, points out that within Facebook, there were people who opposed these posts put up by 3 individuals associated with the Bharatiya Janata Party. One was a member of the Legislative Assembly from the Telangana, and there were one gentleman is Mr. Anand Kumar Hegde, and the third gentleman is of course Mr. Kapil Mishra, and said that their speeches are hateful and they violated Facebook's own policies and urged that it should be put down. According to the Wall Street Journal, if the Wall Street Journal is to be believed, Ms. Aki Das said no, overruled it and said it would be bad for business. So far, this has not been contradicted by Ms. Das. What has come out is that the head of Facebook in India, the managing director, he has put out a post that Facebook believes in it should not discriminate on the basis of religion. This is the official position. The second point that should be known, that in the opinion of not just me but many other people, because Facebook says we are an intermediate under the information technology rules, right, we are not liable. Right. But sir, with all humility, I want to say, can they say we are not responsible? Because in my opinion, some of these hateful, inflammatory, ये जो नफरत भरा, हिंसा भरा जो सूचना जो फेसबुक और व्हाट्सएप वितरण कर रहे हैं, ये सिर्फ फेसबुक की अपनी अधिनियम और अपनी कानून, अपनी रूल्स के उल्लंघन नहीं कर रहे। भारतवर्ष का कानून जैसे इंडियन पीनल कोड, कोड ऑफ क्रिमिनल प्रोसीजर, which states clearly that you hateful speech that promotes enmity or results in enmity among different social classes is a crime.
So you think section 153, 153A, 295A, 298, 502, all these 5052, all these of the Indian Penal Code that essentially are offences pertaining to provocation or enmity, creating rift, creating enmity, instigating violence among communities, get attracted to the conduct of certain officials of Facebook India?
अध्यक्ष जी, मैं वकील नहीं हूँ, मैं पत्रकार और लेखक हूँ, तो ये सवाल का जवाब शायद आपका वकील मेरे से अच्छा आपको दे पाएंगे। बट एज अ ऑर्डिनरी सिटीजन, आम नागरिक, हमें लग रहा है कि हाँ, ये सारे कानून का उल्लंघन हुई है। मैं एक और उदाहरण देना चाहता हूँ। विद इन फेसबुक in India and the US, there has been opposition. Not very long ago, Donald Trump had put out certain messages on Twitter, which is a separate social media platform, and also on Facebook. Twitter put it down because they felt that these messages could promote enmity.
Right.
That time, if you remember, after George Floyd's death, there was a lot of agitation, and it was called the Black Lives Matter agitation.
Right.
Twitter felt that these messages could result in sort of police action that would not be good, would have. So, उस समय Facebook के अंदर लोगों ने विरोध किया. This is what reports have Okay. Also a recent report by Reuters also points there have been similar opposition with it. But Facebook has chosen not to do it. After there have been a lot of criticism of Facebook in different parts of the world, they have set up an oversight committee comprising eminent public intellectuals from different parts of the world. I'm not sure whether they have referred these particularly objectionable posts by these three individuals named in the Wall Street Journal articles, Raja Singh and Kapil Mishra and Anand Kumar Hegde have been referred to that committee. Because this committee, if news reports are to be believed, have the power to even overrule Mark Zuckerberg and his deputy, Ms. Sheryl Sandberg.
Now, before you have mentioned two things. One, the Wall Street Journal article. Second, Delhi riots. I will come to these two questions, these 2 points, and I will certainly dilate on these in a bit. But I have a more important question for you, emanating from the response that you've just given. In your book, there are multiple examples that you have quoted, wherein journalists, Facebook pages, as well as politicians who are critical of the ruling dispensation, their content or their accounts have either been banned or the visibility of that content, which is critical of the government and government's view, has been reduced. The visibility has been reduced, and you in fact go on to name certain individuals whose contents has either been banned or the visibility has been reduced. Now, kindly explain that particular excerpt from your book, number one. Number two, do you think that an alleged act like this on part of Facebook or Facebook India is or constitutes an affront to the most cherished ideals of Indian democracy, namely free and fair elections?
I do agree with you there, and let me explain why. We have given specific examples, and I'm quoting just one of them. There are other examples which are there in the book. On the 10th of August 2018, the Caravan was not allowed to boost. You know, they have a system, Facebook allows that if you pay them a certain amount of money, you can boost your post. Boost your post and more people can see it. And this was an article which dealt with Shri Amit Shah's assets and liabilities as per the affidavits that he had filed before the Election Commission of India. Now, the publication wanted to boost this particular article on Facebook. However, the approval came 11 days later, by which the article had lost a lot of potential for traction in वो हमारी जो खबरों का जो साइकिल होता है, the news cycle had gone ahead. और भी ऐसे उदाहरण हमने दिया, and the Caravan has a verified account with Facebook, and both organizations have partnered each other in hosting public events. Facebook has been working with large numbers of media organizations, and there are 2 points I want to add over here. According to the Wall Street Journal, after they send a questionnaire to Facebook, why are these hateful posts still available for public viewing, they put down these. That means within them they must have taken some action. But the point is they did not act until the Wall Street Journal actually pointed it out. और ऐसे बहुत सारे आपको उदाहरण मिलेगा कि इन्होंने किस तरह से जो घृणा भरा, हिंसा भरा जो सूचना है, ये रहने दिया बहुत देर के लिए. और हमारे ये सोशल मीडिया में जो गलत खबर है, जो झूठा खबर है, जो अर्थ सत्य है, ये बहुत जल्दी वितरण हो जाते हैं, भागते हैं. मगर आप इसका जब कॉन्ट्रडिक्ट करेंगे, आप कहेंगे ये असत्य है, ये सच नहीं है, ये झूठ है, वो क्लैरिफिकेशन में बहुत समय लग जाता है. दिस इज द नेचर ऑफ द सोशल.
क्या आपको लगता है कि फेसबुक ने निष्पक्ष चुनाव जो भारत देश में होने चाहिए, उसकी निष्पक्षता को भंग करने की दिशा में कुछ काम किए, या जो काम करने चाहिए थे कि चुनाव फ्री एंड फेयर हो, निष्पक्ष हो, उस प्रकार के काम उन्होंने जानबूझकर नहीं करे ताकि एक राजनीतिक दल को फायदा मिले और बाकी राजनीतिक दल को नुकसान हो?
ये सवाल का मैं जवाब दे रहा हूं 2 हिस्से. पहला बात है कि देखिए फेसबुक का जो तकनीक है, जो टेक्नोलॉजी है, वो कहते हैं हम निजता में विश्वास करते हैं, हम अभिव्यक्ति का स्वतंत्रता में विश्वास करते हैं, मगर अगर सचमुच अभिव्यक्ति का स्वतंत्रता का नाम में आप घृणा भरा, हिंसा भरा सूचना भी वितरण करने को अनुमति देते हैं, मैं सचमुच कहता हूं दिस इज ये नीतिगत नहीं है, ये गैर कानूनी भी है। Having said that, I must also add some other points about what is happening and how people have used it, and I'll refer you to the first chapter of our book, how these social media have become weapons, हथियार बन गया, राजनीतिक हथियार बन गया। मैं एक उदाहरण देता हूं। On the 22nd of September, 22 सितंबर 2018, एक पब्लिक रैली, जो भारतीय जनता पार्टी का जो सोशल मीडिया वॉलंटियर्स थे कोटा राजस्थान में, उस समय भारतीय जनता पार्टी का अध्यक्ष श्री अमित शाह, he had remarked, हिंदी में कहा, ये YouTube में आपको मिल जाएगा, हमारे पास क्षमता है कि कहीं भी सूचना हम वायरल करा देंगे, सच या झूठ, मीठा या खट्टा, we are capable of delivering any message we want to the public, whether sweet or sour, true or fake। इसका अगर हम कॉन्टेक्स्ट में डालेंगे, जब उत्तर प्रदेश का विधानसभा जो चुनाव हुई थी फरवरी और मार्च 2017, उससे पहले भारतीय जनता पार्टी का दो बहुत बड़ा अपने सपोर्टर्स के व्हाट्सएप ग्रुप थे और इसमें 32 लाख लोग थे। बाद में फेसबुक ने इसके ऊपर पाबंदी डाला कि एक ग्रुप के अंदर 251 से ज्यादा सपोर्टर नहीं हो सकता। एट दैट टाइम there were no restrictions, you could have as many, you could have lakhs and lakhs of users। तो भारतीय जनता पार्टी का ये जो ग्रुप्स थे, हर सुबह 8 बजे एक सूचना आ जाता है कि सच क्या है, नो द ट्रूथ, और एक ऐसा एक झूठा खबर, एक फैब्रिकेटेड खबर, गलत खबर इसमें वितरण किया गया। क्या था कि उस समय उत्तर प्रदेश का जो मुख्यमंत्री थे अखिलेश यादव जी, वो अपना पिताजी को थप्पड़ मारा, मुलायम सिंह यादव को, तो ये एकदम वायरल हो गया और अमित शाह जी कहा कि मेरा पास भी पहुंच गया। फिर एक माहौल बन गया, उनका कहा, मैं नहीं कह रहा हूं, अमित शाह जी ने कहा, एक माहौल बन गया और उनसे वो जो उनके सामने जो लोग थे उनसे एक सवाल उठाया, ऐसा करना चाहिए तुम्हें? मैं जानता हूं कर सकते हैं, मगर आपको करना चाहिए? आपको समझ रहे मैं क्या कह रहा हूं? अंग्रेजी का अनुवाद है, दिस इज समथिंग वर्थ डूइंग बट डोंट डू इट। डू यू अंडरस्टैंड व्हाट आई एम सेइंग? एट अ वेरी जनरल लेवल, what a lot of us don't realize is that ये जो फेसबुक है, ये जो व्हाट्सएप है, इसके दो पहलू हैं। आप कहते हैं हमारा पुराने मित्र हैं, हमारे स्कूल के दोस्त हैं, उनके साथ हम संपर्क कर पाया दोबारा, हमने हमारा परिवार का तस्वीर, हमारा जन्मदिन का, हमारा शादी का तस्वीर हम वितरण कर रहे हैं, कितने अच्छे, मुफ्त में हमें ये सेवा मिल रही है। मगर फेसबुक आपको ये सेवा क्यों दे रहे हैं कि आपके बारे में जो सूचना है, आपका व्यवहार, योर बिहेवियर इज बीइंग मॉनिटर्ड, योर डेटा इज बीइंग kept by them। और सिर्फ ये नहीं कि आपको कौन सा खाना पसंद है, आप कौन सा कमीज पसंद है, कौन सा फिल्म आप पसंद करते हैं, कौन सा अभिनेता को पसंद करते हैं, कौन सा गाना पसंद करते हैं, बट व्हाट आर योर पॉलिटिकल प्रेफरेंस, आप कौन सा राजनीतिक दल में आप समर्थन करते हैं, आपका व्यक्तिगत विचारधारा क्या है, आपका राजनीतिक दृष्टिकोण क्या है, ये भी उनके पास आ जाता है। तो मैं उदाहरण देना चाहता हूँ, ये कैम्ब्रिज एनालिटिका, और इस विषय के ऊपर एक बहुत लंबा नेटफ्लिक्स में एक वृत्त चित्र बनाया, द ग्रेट हैक, 2 घंटा का, कि किस तरह से चोरी किया, और बाद में फेसबुक ने माफी मांगा कि हमारा सूचना इन्होंने चोरी किया, और इस किताब में हमने उदाहरण दिया किस तरह से ये सूचना का दुरुपयोग हुआ था राजनीतिक कार्यों के लिए, हाउ इट वाज यूज्ड फॉर पॉलिटिकल पर्पसेस, और इनके कौन निर्देशक था, उनका राजनीतिक जो संपर्क है, ये सारे डिटेल्स आपको ये किताब में मिल जाएगा।
आपने एक क्वेश्चनियर अपने पेज नंबर 13, चैप्टर 13 अपनी किताब में एक लंबा चौड़ा क्वेश्चनियर है जो आपने फेसबुक के आंखी दास और शिवनाथ ठुकराल से कई सारे सवाल पूछे रिगार्डिंग पार्टीजन पॉलिटिक्स एटसेट्रा। क्या आपको इन सवालों के जवाब मिले, जिसमें आपने यहाँ तक पूछा कि आपका भारतीय जनता पार्टी से क्या रिश्ता है?
वो बोला हम सारे राजनीतिक दल को मदद करने के लिए तैयार है।
ठीक है,
ये
आप सेटिस्फाइड थे जब आप?
जी
नहीं थे।
देखिए,
आपने वॉल स्ट्रीट जर्नल का 14 अगस्त 2020 का जो आर्टिकल है जिसका जिक्र आपने अभी किया, जिसका कैप्शन है फेसबुक हेट स्पीच रूल्स कोलाइड विद इंडियन पॉलिटिक्स, और जिसमें जिक्र किया गया है कि कैसे जानबूझकर, इंटेंशनली, डेलिबरेटली बहुत सारा इन्फ्लेमेटरी और हेटफुल कंटेंट जिससे लोगों की भावनाएं भड़क सकती हैं, सांप्रदायिक सद्भाव बिगड़ सकता है, वो जानबूझकर फेसबुक पर रहने दिया, उसे वहां से हटाया नहीं गया, जिससे लोगों की धार्मिक भावनाएं, जातीय भावनाएं भड़क सकती हैं, दंगा फसाद हो सकता है। क्या आपको लगता है कि इस आर्टिकल के पढ़ने के बाद, आपने इतनी रिसर्च करके इतनी बड़ी किताब भी लिखी है, कि दिल्ली में जो दंगे हुए जिसका जिक्र आपने अभी किया, दिल्ली में 2020 इस साल की शुरुआत में जो हिंसा हुई, जो घटना हुई, जो दंगे हुए, उसमें फेसबुक की कोई भूमिका थी, और अगर थी तो क्या थी?
मैं समझता हूं फेसबुक से ज्यादा इनका भूमिका था व्हाट्सएप। ये
2 मिनट के लिए पहले फेसबुक पे रहते हैं, फिर व्हाट्सएप पे। क्या आपको लगता है कि दिल्ली दंगों में जो इस साल 2020 में शुरुआत में हुए, in light of this article and in light of the book that you have written, with your understanding, you are a domain expert, you understand these things, you have served on several committees, do you think that Facebook played a role as far as Delhi riots are concerned? If yes, what role? And if Facebook has aided and abetted or helped engineering of Delhi riots that happened in the year 2020?
With all due respect to you, Mr. Chairman, I do not distinguish between Facebook and WhatsApp and Instagram. It is the same organization, मालिकाना एक है। और मैं समझता हूँ कि जो सोशल मीडिया, जो माध्यम का सबसे ज्यादा दुरुपयोग हुआ था फेसबुक से ज्यादा, ये है व्हाट्सएप। क्यों? फेसबुक में अगर आप कुछ भी पोस्ट डालिए या कुछ भी वीडियो दिखाइए, सब लोग को मालूम पड़ता कौन क्या। आप एक You can have a fictitious name, मगर फिर भी लोगों को मालूम पड़ेगा मिस्टर ABC और मिस XYZ have put up this post or this video or this picture। मगर WhatsApp में जब आप वीडियो का वितरण करते हैं, या WhatsApp में आप एक से दूसरे व्यक्ति को आपका जो भी तस्वीर है, ये स्टिल पिक्चर्स है, वीडियोस है, ये आप वितरण करेंगे, फेसबुक खुद कहते हैं हमें मालूम नहीं है कौन कर रहे हैं, और जो आप जिसके पास पहुंच रहे हैं उनको भी मालूम नहीं है कहां से आया। अभी कुछ महीना पहले बोला कि ऐसा चीज हम एक व्यक्ति को फॉरवर्ड कर सकते हैं। इससे पहले 5 थे, आप 5 ग्रुप में फॉरवर्ड कर सकते हैं। 5 ग्रुप, हर ग्रुप में 250 लोग हो सकते हैं। इसका मतलब आपको 1250 या 255 लोगों को आप 5 बार क्लिक करके आप लिख सकते हैं। ठीक है, आप एक बार कर सकते हैं। एक ग्रुप में 150 तक लोग हो सकते हैं। मेरा कहना है कि जो घृणा भरा जो तस्वीर है, और बहुत सारे तस्वीर को इन्होंने मैनिपुलेट किया, कि फोटोशॉप किया, ये बना के व्हाट्सएप का माध्यम से ये वितरण हुई थी। जैसे 2002 का जो गुजरात में जो दंगा हुई थी, इसका एक अभिनवता है, the uniqueness, the speciality of the 2000 or the unusual aspect of the 2002 communal riots in Gujarat was they were broadcast live. टेलीविजन का माध्यम से लोग लाइव देख रहे थे क्या हो रहा है। The uniqueness or the unique aspect of the communal riots, Hindu-Muslim riots in northeastern Delhi, was this was a riot that was promoted by the social media or WhatsApp. This is my personal view.
So, do you think that Facebook, using its capacity, capability and power, had the ability, if not the intent as you put it, to prevent or at least mitigate the effects of the Delhi riots?
This is a question that I cannot answer. Only Facebook and the owners of WhatsApp can answer. मैं सिर्फ आपको 2-4 उदाहरण देना चाहता हूँ। इससे पहले भी बहुत सारे लोग, और हमारे जो मंत्री हैं रविशंकर प्रसाद जी ने, उन्होंने भी फेसबुक को बुलाया कि आपका जो घृणा भरा जो खबर है, कहीं किसी ने किसी को बलात्कार किया या किसी ने कोई अश्लील पोर्नोग्राफिक कंटेंट कर रहा है, इसको आप वितरण करने में हम कैसे मालूम पड़ेगा कौन किया? तो उस समय व्हाट्सएप का जो प्रवक्ता थे, व्हाट्सएप का जो अधिकारी थे, बोला वी डोंट, आवर टेक्नोलॉजी डज नॉट परमिट इट। आज भी वही बात कर रहे हैं। सो दिस इज अ क्वेश्चन दैट इज बीइंग डिबेटेड एंड डिस्कस्ड अक्रॉस द वर्ल्ड। आप निजता का नाम में, आप अभिव्यक्ति का स्वतंत्रता के नाम में आप कुछ भी वितरण कर सकते हैं। दिस इज नॉट गुड for I believe for human society। किसी ने मुनाफा कमाने के लिए कुछ भी वितरण कर सकते हैं। मैं समझता हूँ इसके ऊपर कुछ पाबंदी होना चाहिए, मगर किस तरह से पाबंदी होनी चाहिए, कैसे कानून इस्तेमाल होगा? मैं वकील नहीं हूँ, मैं विधायक नहीं हूँ, आई एम नॉट अ लॉ मेकर, बट अक्रॉस द वर्ल्ड देयर आर दीज डिस्कशंस एंड डिबेट्स। और एक जो अमेरिका का एलिजाबेथ वॉरेन ने कहा था कि इतना बड़ा हो गया संस्था, this they must be perhaps broken up, fragmented. That is one suggestion, but nothing has happened. In Australia, both Google and Facebook are being told, you call yourselves a technology company and not a media company, but you are distributing the media content. You are getting most of the advertising revenue. Share some with those who are producing the content. न्यूजीलैंड, फ्रांस में, जर्मनी में अलग अलग संस्थाओं में बातचीत हो रहे हैं। और आप रिसेंटली जो डिपोजिशंस हुई है यूएस में, आप ये भी एक बात देख लीजिए।
आपने जिक्र करा कि दिल्ली दंगों को, और उसका एक पैरेलल आपने इस देश में पहले भी जो दंगे हुए उनसे किया, और बताया कि कैसे लाइव टेलीकास्ट जब हिंसा का होता है तो भावनाएं और भड़कती हैं। और आपने उदाहरण दिया कि किस प्रकार से दिल्ली दंगों के दौरान वो रोल सोशल मीडिया ने निभाया और लाइव टेलीकास्ट करके सांप्रदायिक सद्भाव आपके हिसाब से बिगड़ा। मैं आपसे ये पूछना चाहूंगा कि बहुत सारा कंटेंट, और खास करके एक भारतीय जनता पार्टी के नेता का नाम आता है जो दिल्ली विधानसभा के पूर्व विधायक रहे, जिनके एक भाषण के कुछ ही घंटे बाद वो हिंसा शुरू हुई उत्तर पूर्वी दिल्ली में, जिसका जिक्र फेसबुक के सीईओ मार्क जकरबर्ग ने भी किया और कहा कि ये एक उदाहरण है हेट स्पीच का, ये अव्वल उदाहरण है इस हेट स्पीच का। ये वीडियो उनके भाषण का और इस प्रकार के कई सारे वीडियोस और कंटेंट काफी समय तक, हफ्तों तक, दिल्ली दंगों के दौरान भी, उसके बाद भी, दंगे शांत होने के बाद भी फेसबुक के प्लेटफॉर्म पर पड़े रहे।
बिल्कुल ठीक,
वो हटा ही नहीं गए फेसबुक से, वो फेसबुक पे पड़े रहे। हजारों लोगों ने कंप्लेंट्स करी। हमारे पास दिल्ली विधानसभा की पीस एंड हार्मनी कमेटी के पास कई कंप्लेंट्स ऐसी आई हैं जिसमें लोगों ने ये बताया है कि हमने इन वीडियोस के खिलाफ, उस भारतीय जनता पार्टी के नेता के वीडियो के खिलाफ भी फेसबुक में शिकायत दर्ज करी, लेकिन ना उस शिकायत पे सुनवाई हुई और ना ही उस वीडियो को फेसबुक से हटाया गया। क्या आपको लगता है कि इस प्रकार के भावना भड़काने वाले, सांप्रदायिक सद्भाव बिगाड़ने वाले, दंगा फसाद को जन्म देने वाले कंटेंट और वीडियोस जो इतने हफ्तों तक फेसबुक पे पड़े रहे, जानबूझकर रखे गए, उससे कम्युनल डिसहार्मनी पैदा हुई, सांप्रदायिक सद्भाव बिगड़ा राष्ट्रीय राजधानी क्षेत्र दिल्ली का?
अध्यक्ष जी, राघव चड्ढा जी, मैं आपके साथ 100% सहमत हूं। आई एग्री एंटायरली विद व्हाट यू से। इस तरह से जो घृणा भरा, हिंसा भरा जो वीडियोस बार बार आप दिखाते रहते हैं, और जैसे आपको मैंने कहा, फेसबुक अपने आप को कहते हैं हम टेक्नोलॉजी कंपनी हैं। भारतवर्ष के सूचना प्रयुक्ति इंफॉर्मेशन टेक्नोलॉजी कानून के अंदर अपने आप को कहते हैं इंटरमीडियरीज, एक तरह से बिचौली है। उनका कहना है कि अगर हमारे खिलाफ कोई शिकायत आते हैं और या कोई कोर्ट, कोई अदालत कोई राय देते हैं या कोई पुलिस अधिकारी हमारा शिकायत करते हैं, तो हम सोच समझ के हम निकाल देते हैं और कहते हैं हमारे जो मशीन्स हैं, जो एल्गोरिथम्स हैं, ये बता देते हैं क्या घृणा भरा है। मगर ये एल्गोरिथम्स कौन बनाते हैं? लोग बनाते हैं। और ये विदेश में होता है या हमारे देश में होता है? मैं एक थोड़ा मजेदार है, एक उदाहरण मैं देना चाहता हूँ। ट्विटर में, फेसबुक में लोग हमें गाली दिया, UMCPC, तो मैंने ये शिकायत किया कि ये घृणा भरा है, हमें गाली दे रहे हैं, एब्यूसिव कंटेंट है। फिर हमारे पास जवाब आया, नो दिस डज नॉट वायलेट आवर कम्युनिटी स्टैंडर्ड्स, क्योंकि उनका एल्गोरिथम शायद सोचा था MC का मतलब है मास्टर ऑफ सेरेमनीज, BC के मतलब होगा बिफोर क्राइस्ट। तो ये एल्गोरिथम सब कुछ आपको नहीं बता पाएंगे। The point you are making, I completely agree with you. These actually have an effect. When the same thing is shown over and over again, it does indeed create.
My question was whether this was algo driven or whether the content was not removed due to deliberate and intentional inaction on the part of officials of Facebook in implementing their policies and regulations on hate speech.
Mr. Chairman, this is a question that only Facebook can answer for you, whether it was deliberate or not. But look at the circumstantial evidence. Despite so many complaints which you say, why was it kept for as long as it was? Why is it that after the journalists of the Wall Street Journal sent them examples and say, why have this 1, 2, 3, 4 examples of hate speech still available, after they received the questionnaire and before the publication of the article on the 15th of August, why did they pull it down? Does this not reveal that they themselves realized that there was something wrong? So the point is whether they will deny that they were not complicit, but their actions sometimes speak louder than their words.
So therefore, do you think that there should be a fair, impartial investigation by the investigative agencies, namely the Delhi police, into the role of Facebook in the Delhi riots 2020?
Of course, this is for me what they say a no-brainer. Yes, the Delhi police must investigate. Let me here make one additional point. Can a video, can a message which is on WhatsApp be admitted as evidence in a court of law under the Indian Evidence Act? Now I have a hateful video in my mobile and then I delete it. It is only when the police person sees my phone and then show those messages or those videos, can a judge or a magistrate look at it. So this is one issue in my opinion that needs to be debated, whether messages, videos and text messages and videos and pictures can be included as evidence under the Indian Evidence Act in a court of law, and under what circumstances can it only be done? Because आजकल जब कहीं आयकर विभाग का छप्पा लगाते हैं, ED वालों छप्पा लगाते हैं, हमारे CBI वालों पुलिस अधिकारी, वो पहला काम क्या करते हैं? आपका लैपटॉप सीज कर लेते हैं, आपका मोबाइल फोन सीज कर लेते हैं। क्यों? मैसेजेस पढ़ने चाहते हैं, ये एनक्रिप्टेड मैसेजेस पढ़ना चाहते हैं। मगर अगर मैं सारे मैसेजेस हटा दिया, if I deleted all those messages, it can still be available if I have a backup, if I have a chat backup in my phone, then and it is being backed up on an iCloud, then all of those will remain.
So you think that fair and impartial investigation is needed in the role of Facebook?
There's no doubt about that.
Number two, you state in your book, and I quote an excerpt from your book, Facebook may pay lip service to controlling fake news on its platform, but really it is only making noises to soothe our ruffled feelings. In reality, it will fight tooth and nail any meaningful change on its platform to curb fake news. Now, do you think that the community standards that the Facebook has come out with, which they claim that they enforce when they see inflammatory content and hateful speech, etc., are being selectively implemented, and it's essentially a facade in order to cater to the public pressure for accountability?
Yes, I agree with the suggestion that is made in your question. The problem is the business model of Facebook. If a message or a video goes viral, it is good for Facebook. It is good for their business. Whether it is hateful, whether it is fake, whether it is false. और मैं आपको एक उदाहरण देना चाहता हूँ. देखिए आज हमारे देश के how big is the impact? I just want to make a few points. हमारे देश में 135 करोड़ हमारे देश का आबादी है. हमारे देश का लोक संख्या जनसंख्या है. अगर टेलीकॉम रेगुलेटरी अथॉरिटी ऑफ इंडिया का सूचना आप देखेंगे, हमारे देश में 115 करोड़ टेलीकॉम सब्सक्राइबर्स है. इसका मतलब है सिम्स, यानी कि सब्सक्राइबर आइडेंटिटी मॉड्यूल्स, यानी कि भारतवर्ष में ज्यादा से ज्यादा इलाका में लोगों से ज्यादा सिम्स है. लगभग हमारे देश में 750 मिलियन या 75 करोड़ के आसपास मोबाइल सेलुलर फोन्स है, चलायमान दूरभाष यंत्र है. इसमें समझ लीजिए लगभग 40 से 45 करोड़ मोबाइल फोन आज इंटरनेट एनेबल्ड है. मैं नहीं कह रहा हूं, व्हाट्सएप खुद कह रहे हैं कि वी हैव 400 मिलियन यूजर्स, 40 करोड़ यूजर्स. तो आज सिर्फ ये शहर नहीं, छोटा शहर नहीं, बड़ा शहर नहीं, गांव गांव में आज लोग व्हाट्सएप का इस्तेमाल कर रहे हैं. रवीश कुमार ने जैसे कहा, हमारे देश में बहुत युवाओं है जिसको आज सौभाग्य नहीं मिला शिक्षा मिलने के लिए एक अच्छे शिक्षा संस्था में, कई अच्छे शिक्षक के पास. आज वो व्हाट्सएप विश्वविद्यालय में उनका शिक्षा मिल रहा है. और ये व्हाट्सएप विश्वविद्यालय में बहुत सारे झूठा खबर, अर्ध सत्य खबर आते हैं. मैं एक उदाहरण देना चाहता हूँ. मेरा एक रिश्तेदार कुछ साल पहले हमारे पास आके बोला, मौसा जी हर मुसलमान आतंकवादी नहीं है, मगर हर आतंकवादी मुसलमान है. तो मैंने कहा कौन कौन बताया तुम्हें? बोले ये देखिए व्हाट्सएप मैसेज है. दिस इज जस्ट एन एग्जांपल ऑफ हाउ माइंड्स हैव बीन पॉइजन. एक तरह से जो अंग्रेजी में आप कहेंगे इस्लामोफोबिया इन्होंने फैला दिया. And this is having a huge impact on Indian society.
मैं इसी से जुड़ा हुआ सवाल पूछना चाहता हूँ. Would it be correct to say, it's a suggestion that I'm putting to you, would it be correct to say that even when an FIR is registered against a particular person for making hate speech, even in that event, Facebook in many cases does not remove that hate speech from its platform simply because it fails to enforce its community standards?
Once again, Chairman sir, I cannot speak on behalf of Facebook or WhatsApp. But if indeed what you say is correct, then it is a terrible situation to be in. If you are saying, despite a first information report being lodged, I am not taking action, I'm not putting down a post, then that's a very, very unfortunate situation that we are in. Facebook actually is answerable to only Mark Zuckerberg and Sheryl Sandberg who live in Menlo Park, California. मैं एक छोटा सा कहानी आपको बताना चाहता हूँ. एक बार मार्क ज़करबर्ग को सवाल उठाया था ये US में कि this was a similar meeting where he was he was saying, will you tell us which hotel group you stayed in last night, how much you paid for it, what did you eat, can you tell us about the messages you forwarded or messages you sent? He was absolutely quiet. So the point is, when Mr. Zuckerberg purchased his own property in California, he bought a huge amount of area, a huge area around his home because he respects his own privacy. The question is, does he respect the privacy of others? मैं बार बार वही जाके वापस आ रहा हूँ कि ये जो माध्यम है, आपका निजता, आपका जो अभिव्यक्ति का जो स्वतंत्रता है और तकनीक जो है, ये सूचना प्रयुक्ति का जो तकनीक है, इसके नाम में वो समझते हैं हम कुछ भी कर सकते हैं. So FIR in India, well, how does it work? Mr. Zuckerberg is not concerned that he's above the law of India.
Very briefly, on page 4 and 5 of your book, you do mention certain journalists who have done critical stories of this government, and they have been facing challenges with regards to finding their posts now on Facebook. Could you just mention names of certain journalists who have experienced such incidents, as well as post the publication of this book, if there is any personal knowledge of any journalist who has faced this sort of behavior from Facebook.
Okay, I'm not aware after the book was published if there have been any such instances. In the book, we refer to an article that appeared in the Telegraph newspaper by a journalist writing for the Telegraph, Feroz Vincent. He included examples of Rifat Javed of Janata Ka Reporter, Prema Negi and Ajay Prakash of Janjwar, and other journalists of Bolta Hindustan, Caravan Daily, which is distinct from the Caravan, among other organizations. And you will get the exact examples that you can read over here. The point is, this is the media, this is the monster, this is the beast. We all embrace it without realizing it, that there is another side to this social media platform which is hateful and looks the other way when there is hateful.
What, in your understanding, Mr. Thakurta, is the relationship, what in your understanding is the relationship that Facebook has or enjoys with the ruling dispensation of this country, namely the Bharatiya Janata Party?
They are close to them. They keep meeting them frequently, but there's nothing illegal about it. The Congress claims, rightfully, wrongly, there was a particular meeting that took place where Congress representatives had complained to Ms. Akhi Das that their posts on the Rafael scandal were not being boosted or not given the little traction, and Ms. Akhi Das reportedly told them that she will look into the matter. This is a matter that you can ask the Congress spokesperson. On record, Praveen Chakravarti, Shri Praveen Chakravarti, who heads the social media cell of the Congress, has gone on record saying he went and spoke to the Facebook, the top officials of Facebook, and they said they would look into the matter, but he said they did not look into the matter.
Very quickly, short responses. In your understanding, has Facebook enjoyed any benefits, whether regulatory or in terms of oversight, from the Indian government, whether legal or illegal, that is noteworthy?
I have no such evidence. I know that they have provided training to functionaries of the BJP, but then they could do that to anybody, to you or me. But I am not aware if there has been any act that you might describe as illegal. Our complaint is not so much illegal, but about the ethics of it, the proximity, and Facebook has always been close to whoever it is.
I asked this question simply because in a response to my previous question, you had agreed to the suggestion that I put to you that this sort of deference or behavior by Facebook or Facebook India has the ability to have an adverse impact on free and fair elections.
Correct.
And thereby benefiting the Bharatiya Janata Party.
I stick to that. And I gave you that example of what Mr. Amit Shah had said in Kota, Rajasthan. I go along with that view. But if you ask me if I have any concrete evidence...
No, I said in your understanding. That's
this
fine.
Is my understanding. As I mentioned earlier to you, proximity to a particular ruling party or even complicity, it may not be happen.
In your understanding, has Facebook in enforcing its community standards acted in a manner that is unduly would benefit the political party that currently runs or has majority in the Lok Sabha?
Yes,
it would.
That's right.
And does, in your understanding, or has Facebook chose to selectively and differentially enforce its community standards to unduly benefit a few or a certain political party that has majority in the Lok Sabha?
Yes, I would say yes to that as well.
Thank you, Mr. Thakurta, for appearing before this committee. We appreciate your attendance before this committee. And in the event that this committee has any more questions to ask, we would again ask you to kindly facilitate your appearance before this committee.
Thank you.
If there's any statement that you wish to make in conclusion, you're free to say that before the committee.
No, thank you, Mr. Raghav Chadda, Chairman, for asking me to depose. I have expressed myself in front of everybody, in front of the cameras, in front of a live broadcast. I've said what I have to say with born out of my own conviction on the basis of the research. My colleague and I, we interviewed dozens of people, over 50 individuals we interviewed on the record, off the record, in preparing this book. And as I mentioned earlier, copies of the book are available. And thank you once again for this opportunity to be here.
The committee has taken cognizance and has taken on record a copy of your book.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just stand on your next to the mic.
I, Nikhil Pava, swear in the name of the Constitution, and I affirm that I will speak the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, and no part of my deposition shall be false.
Please have a seat.
Thank you, sir.
Just put the mic close to it. Mr. Pava, could you please kindly identify yourself for record?
My name is Nikhil Pava. I'm the founder and the editor of Media Nama, which reports on technology and technology policy in India. I have been a journalist for 14 years, reporting exclusively on the technology space in India. And I'm also a digital rights activist. I have spoken up and participated in government processes, consultations, campaigns in the interest of freedom of speech, privacy, net neutrality, and it is my mission to help create an internet that is open, fair, global and competitive.
Have you ever had any connection of professional nature, business nature, commercial nature or monetary nature with Facebook?
So I'm appearing in my personal capacity. In my personal capacity, I have not, but I work for an organization that I have founded, which does receive sponsorship from Facebook for events that we conduct, along with many other sponsors. We are not solely dependent on Facebook.
Could you first throw some light on the community standards and guidelines that the Facebook has allegedly come out with and which they claim to enforce against hate speech, and help the members of the committee understand how those guidelines function and how those community standards are enforced and implemented?
So, just in the same way that every company has its own policies, it has its own terms and conditions. Facebook has a privacy policy, it has its terms and conditions, it also has community standards which they expect that the community will follow. These are essentially their own rules that they've created, and content can be taken down on the basis of those community standards. Hate speech is one of those community standards. And what we do know about the implementation of community standards is that it happens in two ways, and this is to the best of my knowledge about how it's implemented, because Facebook's implementation of community standards keep changing. It's very clear that there is lack of consistency in the deployment or the implementation of community standards. Posts are taken down, then they are put back. Sometimes they're taken down for a period of time and then they are put back. Sometimes they remain down. What we do understand is that because if you just look at the scale at which things operate, there are billions of messages that are put up on a platform. It is humanly impossible for any single platform to be able to monitor all of them. And this is the same thing that we see on Twitter, the same thing that we see on YouTube as well. So there are certain there are algorithms which basically flag content that content is then sent to human moderators, which then apply human thinking, because algorithms cannot judge whether something should or should not be taken down. And the human moderators are trained and given a set of guidelines according to which the content either stays down or goes back up. What we don't know is whether the local team has any interference in this. From the Wall Street Journal story, it does indicate that the local team and Ms. Ankhi Das made a recommendation that the content not be taken down. We don't know if that was what is the final decision, who took the final decision. So there is a lack of transparency from Facebook in terms of how the community standards are implemented. Globally, no one knows, but there are enough reports. So there is a ProPublica report in 2017, which indicated that people in power are less likely to be censored. According to that report, white men were being treated as a protected category on Facebook, which means that their content would attract less implementation of community standards versus other entities. We also have a situation, according to that report, it suggested that Facebook tends to favor and serve governments who can block it. And but content that's targeting protected categories is deleted. So there has been wide criticism of Facebook globally regarding the implementation of community standards. And some of these decisions are very, very hard because they involve free speech. Algorithms cannot determine human cases in terms of what human laws and judgments have. So I'll give you a very simple example. There was a Norwegian newspaper had published the photo of the Napalm girl. It showed a napalm bombed during the Vietnam War, and it showed a naked child running in front of it. That is a prize-winning historic photo, but because it showcased a small young naked girl, it was taken down by Facebook as pornography. And so algorithms can flag it. Human moderators looking at rules can say this is pornography and take it down because they don't have context. But when the Norwegian Prime Minister pointed this out, and there was wide criticism of Facebook for censorship, it was put back up. So these are hard decisions, and in order to deal with these hard decisions, Facebook has an oversight board which it has created as an independent trust, which is not controlled by Facebook, but it has been given a grant by Facebook, and it's supposed to generate its own money in the future from other entities.
Right. So you mentioned the word selective. That
Yes.
there have been instances where Facebook has been selective.
Yes.
When it comes to implementing or enforcing these community standards. Let's for a minute stay on community standards.
Yes.
Have there been instances of Facebook being selective when it comes to enforcing community standards qua India?
So I think there's a report that Mr. Gua Thakurta also mentioned in the Caravan, which was in September 2019, where accounts had been suspended, which was specific to India, where many journalist accounts were suspended. According to the Caravan story, there were memes related to the Prime Minister, there were protests against government policies, and there were people who were sharing that content who had been censored. And there were sites like Vandana Bharati, BeFirst.in, BeFirst Kannada, Fake Express, and also a right-wing site, Postcard News, that had also been censored by Facebook. So there is implementation, but I don't think we have the evidence or the vast amount of information to indicate that only there has been that kind of targeted, selected blocking.
Is it because the implementation of those community standards or the non-implementation is largely opaque and not put out in the public domain?
Absolutely, sir. It is my belief that there should be transparency and accountability of not just the community standards, but also how they are implemented, where the decisions are made. Because in this, and in the case mentioned in the Wall Street Journal story, what is most important is decision making. At what level has someone been asked, has someone said, this is my call, this will stay up? But I think there's a larger philosophical point to also look at, which is that our free speech is in the hands of a platform. And I will, if you want, I can get into intermediary liability, which Mr. Gua Thakurta mentioned, or I can get to it later, depending on your
No, please go ahead.
So I have been an advocate for intermediary liability for a very long time, of intermediary liability protections, because those protections are what make the internet function. It means that an internet service provider like a MTNL, a BSNL, a Jio or a Airtel is not liable for what message is sent. If I run a blog and someone leaves a comment there, I can't be held liable for the comment on my blog. In the same way, platforms like Facebook and Twitter and YouTube are important enablers of free speech. We are able to say what we want. Political parties can campaign. Users can ask for help for adoption of dogs or for blood. All of these things are possible because they don't moderate. There's no pre-censorship. And so these protections are important for enabling our speech on the internet, but there need to be reasonable restrictions which are applicable under law. Now what safe harbor protections both in India and the US do is that they protect the platform, because it's important to protect the platform for free speech, but at another level they allow the platform to impose their own terms and conditions in the interest of their community. So if I'm running a site that is only going to be for, let's say, Indian cricket supporters, and someone starts posting football news, in my terms and conditions or in my community standards, I can put some of those things to prevent them from changing the nature of my community. That's my role, that's my job. So at one point, Facebook has been given the freedom to do what it wants. At another level, it's also been given the freedom to control our speech. This was great until it became such a dominant platform, until YouTube became such a dominant platform, until Twitter became such a dominant platform. And because of that power that they have of virtually controlling all of our speech, I think it's important for society, for governments to come up with guardrails or some kind of norms under which these community standards have to be implemented and they can be held accountable. I don't want a situation where a law is made targeting one instance or one select series of instances, and it destroys the freedoms that the internet also gives us, even though I do acknowledge there are significant harms that are coming to us.
Mr. Pava, in your understanding,
Yes.
is Facebook or Facebook's community standards or guidelines
Yes.
sufficient to prevent hate speech from being promoted or propagated?
I'm not sure about that, sir. My understanding is that the implementation is insufficient.
The implementation is
Yes.
insufficient. That was my next question, whether Facebook India's community standards have been sufficiently and adequately enforced when it comes to curbing or taking action against hate speech.
So I'm not aware whether Facebook has a separate set of community standards for India. There is a general set of community standards.
Right.
In the same way that there is no set of oversight.
Consider those as the
Yes.
main set of standards, yeah.
But so I wanted to also rebut part of the previous testimony about the oversight board. It was said that, for example, Mr. T. Raja Singh's that the oversight committee can look into content that is taken down. As far as there is my understanding of Facebook's community standards and also of some experts is that the community standards are not applied on the application of local laws. Sorry, the oversight board cannot look into application of local law. It can only look into the application of the global community standards. And in those cases, it's only content which has been taken down that someone can appeal against. So the oversight board is like a Supreme Court. You can appeal to the Supreme Court or the oversight board to put the content back up. But if something has not been taken down, as far as the current community standards go, and this is the interpretation of Ms. Chinmay Arun, who is an expert in this field, and I would recommend that you also have her deposed virtually if possible. Her understanding is that that it cannot appeal content that has remained up.
Right.
And so if there's hate speech which is allowed to stay on the platform, the oversight board cannot look into it, and the decision and the responsibility and the accountability for that lies with Facebook, but we cannot hold them liable for it under safe harbor protections.
Fine. In your understanding,
Yes, sir.
particularly after the Wall Street Journal article dated 14th of August 2020. Who is the decision maker when it comes to taking action against hate speech or inflammatory content that is published on Facebook?
I don't know, sir. There is absolutely no public clarity on who's the decision maker and how does this entire chain of command work. And another instance is, we didn't even know that the local team has access to what has been recommended for takedown.
Yeah.
So that's one instance which has come to light because of this report. So like I said, there needs to be transparency, and perhaps my recommendation to the committee would be that they should perhaps ask Facebook to submit copies of their processes for the examination of the committee.
So yes, as a domain expert, as somebody who understands freedom of internet, digital content, social media platforms, so on and so forth, after reading the article of the Wall Street Journal dated 14th August 2020, is it fair to conclude that the local team and officials of Facebook India that have been named in that report are responsible or have a substantial say when it comes to acting or resorting to inaction when it comes to curbing hate speech?
So I have a slightly long answer to this.
Please go ahead.
My understanding is that it is the job of the local team to make recommendations, and it is the job of whoever's taking the decision to take those recommendations on board and make a decision on it. If I'm a company and I have a local team in the country that understands the sensitivities of the country, then I would rely on the local team to give recommendations, and I might very well act on those recommendations. So I would say that the local team does have a say, but I would also point out towards what was written in the ProPublica article, that it is about power. Every company, and it's especially true in this country, is afraid of the power that a government or a political party in power can wield. And so they would legitimately want to protect their business interests, and these kind of actions could take place in order to protect those business interests. And this is across companies also. I mean, if you think about it, just go back, tell me a budget where an industrialist has said that the union budget was a bad budget. They will all bow down before the power because effectively the fear of government suppresses free speech. And you might only find an exception like a Rahul Bajaj who will speak up at those occasions. So I wouldn't necessarily think about Facebook as a country because of the billions of users it has, and think of Ankhi Das as their ambassador in the country. Ankhi Das's job is to recommend what is best for Facebook. It may not be best for users, it may not be best for industry, but she's doing her job.
Commercially best for Facebook.
Absolutely, I agree. And I think what we've seen in history from 2010 onwards, especially in case of privacy and now in case of free speech issues, Facebook has had this philosophy of move fast and break things. It's only when things are broken that they have acted. If you just look at WhatsApp, the first instance that I recall of WhatsApp and being related to communal riots was the Muzaffarnagar riots in 2013. And in fact, that came up in a TRI meeting on net neutrality in 2016. It has taken our IT Minister Ravi Shankar Prasad calling Facebook repeatedly a year prior to the elections for Facebook to implement on WhatsApp velocity restrictions that you can forward a message only to 5 people or 5 groups, whereas earlier you could do to 256. It's only after that they have started marking messages as forwards. So this company historically does not act until it is pulled up. In fact, one of the assertions that was made by Ms. Arun yesterday in her webinar was that Facebook responds mostly to US media, not even to Indian media. So it's only when it is shamed, it is pulled up, it is hauled up in a country that it acts. It did not act on Myanmar for many years until the New York Times story led to the United Nations taking cognizance of Facebook allowing powerful people to put hate speech out. So is it guilty of willful ignorance? Is it guilty of looking the other way? Yes. That platform is built to create engagement. and it has historically been responsible for allowing things to go on. Unfortunately, under laws, we can't hold them liable for that, because that's also essential for the free speech on the platform. Should we? Let me ask you like this as a rhetorical question. Do we want to leave censorship in the hands of Facebook? Here we want them to censor content that we don't agree with. But what happens when they censor content that we agree with? Eventually, the responsibility lies with law enforcement. And we have seen in the last few weeks also, especially in case of the Delhi riots, where there were politicians during the elections who made hateful speech who were not prosecuted. You asked about Delhi police and whether there is a belief that they should be allowed to investigate this as a neutral entity. And my opinion is, I don't view them as a neutral entity. So, if they can absolve those politicians for what was to my mind, and I think in the minds of many people, incitement to violence, how can you expect them to do a fair job over here?
So, coming to the point that you just made, do you think that content that was allowed to be published and stay for weeks on Facebook, which had the ability to create enmity between communities, to provoke violence, incite violence, etc., was published and remained on Facebook, and despite several complaints, despite several requests to Facebook to take down that content, the authorities, the Facebook, did not take it down? Do you think that if these facts are true, this certainly calls for an investigation?
Absolutely.
A free, fair, impartial investigation by an investigative agency on the role of Facebook in the Delhi riots 2020.
So what I would say is that there needs to be a fair and impartial investigation on the role that Facebook has played in not taking down content, and whether there is a bias, and the Wall Street Journal story suggests that there is a bias, that needs to be investigated. What I would also say is that it's important to consider that this may have not been, it's only if it was brought up to this. So an investigation is necessary.
Yes.
I'm not going to say that they're guilty of it, because I think platforms need to work in, there's a role of law enforcement in these matters also. And I don't think that we should only look at platform, but we need to hold our law enforcement agencies accountable for their acts and of omission and commission as well.
Absolutely. Since you mentioned censorship, in your understanding, has the Facebook's algorithm or their enforcement of community standards have been selective and differential in a way where they have not taken action against content that favors a particular political party and has taken action against content that goes against the popular or goes against the beliefs and the ideology or the public image of that political party?
So I have zero visibility, as does the rest of the world, on how Facebook's algorithm operates. What we do know is that during the COVID-19 pandemic at the beginning, content moderation teams that are tasked with the human element of it were asked to stay home.
Okay.
And they didn't get involved in addressing content that had been taken down automatically by the algorithm. As a consequence of that, what you found was that lots of content which should not have been taken down was taken down. So I seriously question the effectiveness and the ability of algorithms to take these decisions. These are human decisions, and there are people who've been trained to take these decisions. But overall, I would say responsibility lies with the company, and if a company is that powerful, it is that global in nature, in that case, it has to have the wherewithal to implement these standards. At the same time, I would also want to ensure that these standards or these expectations of standards are limited for smaller platforms, because they don't have such big a role. And historically, laws and legislations, for example, the Delhi government could consider a law that looks at some of these aspects of social media for regulation, but or the central government to do that. But historically, as we've seen, even with the GDPR in Europe, those laws have ended up benefiting larger platforms because the cost of compliance is so small for smaller platforms. Quite often, large platforms are okay with regulation because they can afford to be okay with regulations. And that reduces competition, increases dominance, and the problem we're facing globally is that of dominance and also lack of trust. Citizens don't trust each other, citizens don't trust platforms, citizens don't trust governments, governments don't trust each other, governments don't trust platforms and companies, and therefore this has become a geopolitical issue at the United Nations, where the UN OEWG is trying to evolve consensus on norms for stability in cyberspace so that the internet can remain global. And these are what you might be doing here in this committee is a microcosm of what is happening at a global level. For example, on end-to-end encryption, you have Brazil that's trying to pass a fake news law which could potentially break end-to-end encryption, which would give Facebook and governments visibility into messages that are being exchanged. But unlike Mr. Dua Thakurda, I'm against the idea of breaking end-to-end encryption, and I would say categorically, as far as technology goes, and my limited understanding of technology goes, Facebook cannot see a message that's been exchanged between you and me on WhatsApp today. And my question is, do we really want that to happen? Imagine what it does for democracies.
Right.
If governments can view all messages between two individuals.
Right. So according to the Wall Street Journal article dated 14th August 2020, a Facebook spokesperson, and I quote, acknowledged that Ms. Ankhi Das had raised concerns about the political fallout that would result from designating Telangana MLA T. Raja Singh a dangerous individual, but said her opposition wasn't the sole factor in company's decision to let Mr. Singh remain on the platform. Could you just dilate on this and help us understand the role of the concerned official of the Facebook and what would be the reasons behind this deliberate inaction against a leader of the Bharatiya Janata Party?
So let me just dial back a little bit and look at what threats Facebook has been facing to its existing policies, right? So in 2000 and in the IT Act that was passed in 2008, there was a law called 66A. There was a clause in the IT Act called 66A which was being used to censor speech. Both the UPA government then and the NDA government that came later opposed declaring 66A unconstitutional, which means they supported 66A. Now Facebook got two users, effectively they had two users arrested because of their speech on the platform. So you can look at this law or this clause as a direct push against Facebook in one way, right? Similarly, you had section 79, which is the safe harbor intermediate liability rule, which is again being looked at for amendment right now by MeitY, which wants to put more liability on platforms for both identification as well as proactive takedowns of content that impacts free speech. Both of these instances are things which Facebook doesn't want, right? You have WhatsApp being prevented from rolling out payments, and exclusively WhatsApp being prevented because the RBI rolled out data localization guidelines for payments when WhatsApp payments was in beta, while others like Google and Paytm and PhonePe etc. rolled out their service, couldn't roll it out. So there has been a dramatic push. And again, add to that, you look at the IT minister repeatedly calling Facebook's WhatsApp CEO at that point in time, Chris Daniels, and then against fake news on the platform. So I would say the central government has been pushing back against Facebook, has been trying to corner it in a sense, on a lot of policies, and not just them. Multiple internet companies are trying to gain more control over the internet. Is our intended outcome therefore, and is that
I'm specifically referring to a concerned Facebook official who I just quoted from the Wall Street Journal article.
So I'm saying, what is the political fallout there?
Yes.
The political fallout is that the government could implement some of these changes that they want, or it could be that they could look at more actions against the company. I don't know what the officials' exact concerns were and what the political fallout was, but the business implications are there for all of us to see. And my thing is, the Facebook official was acting in the business interest of the company. The story might say political fallout, but Facebook is not a political entity. So again, you have another part that was mentioned in that article was that when it was announced, that so many pages had been taken down, the Congress party's pages had been highlighted and BJP pages had not been highlighted. Now, I could attribute that to fear, or I could attribute that to bias. I am in no position to make that attribution.
Right.
And I don't think anybody outside of Facebook is in a position to make that attribution. You might have a large number of instances, but we don't have evidence. Correlation is not causation.
So for this correlation, you think this committee should summon officials of Facebook?
Absolutely. I think the committee should be summoned, and I do think that there needs to be an investigation into bias because it's potentially harmful for our democracy.
If you could help the committee identify the individuals that should be summoned to appear before this committee from Facebook?
Ms. Ankhi Das, Mr. Shivnath Thukral are the two obvious cases here because they are in positions of leadership.
Right. In your opinion, is Facebook misusing its position as an intermediary under the IT Act to pretend that it is a content neutral platform when it is not?
I'll have to think about that because I don't, honestly, I don't have enough evidence to say that it is not a content neutral platform. I don't think, and I think that if it's within the powers of this committee, one should perhaps ask for data related to takedowns and what content was taken down.
Can you say that it is a content neutral platform? Or you
I
can either say that
I can't say either way because I don't have any evidence, and I will not make any statements that I don't have evidence.
Can you throw some light on the fact that how common ownership of Facebook, Instagram and WhatsApp by Facebook Inc. enhances Facebook Inc's ability to create and sustain narratives? To help us understand.
But that statement relies on the assumption that Facebook creates narratives.
Or let's say promote and sustain narratives is not
Again,
created.
Facebook has zero visibility on what messages are being sent on WhatsApp. If a political party was going to create 1 million pages with 256 people each, groups with 256 million people each, and then they're going to have a waterfall effect where everyone sends 256, etc. The only action that Facebook can take, which can be non-neutral, is to take down those groups. But it has no visibility on what messages are being sent, and frankly, at least from what I've read about from global technology experts, it doesn't have that visibility. Now, those things might be possible on Facebook as a platform, not on WhatsApp. I'm not very conversant with Instagram, to be honest. I don't use it and I don't track it as much. I barely use Facebook, but I use WhatsApp a lot because it's that safe platform, because it's got end-to-end encryption. I would not rely on a platform that isn't end-to-end encrypted, to be honest. So I can't say that it is pushing a narrative because it factually cannot push a narrative on WhatsApp. It could allow some things to be boosted on the Facebook platform and some things not allowed, like was mentioned in Caravan. So those possibilities exist, and I think they should definitely be investigated.
There should be an investigation into the fact whether Facebook is actually a content neutral platform or not.
Yes, but I would also like to point out that the IT Act Section 79 intermediate liability rules effectively create a situation where Facebook need not be a content neutral platform because they don't have liability for the content. And so we need to have norms around content moderation, and I have a few suggestions which I can also send in writing to the committee, which is that we need to find a middle ground between safe harbor and complete takedown. It can't be either or because we also need these platforms for free speech. So there needs to be regulation of content moderation, some norms and baseline standards that are created. In Germany, you have a law called the NetzDG, which basically says that large commercial social networks, which are larger than 2 million in Germany, in India that limit could be higher.
We would love to have these in writing
I'm happy to send
please send a copy of that in writing to the committee, and we will certainly consider that. What do you think are the actions or significant measures taken by Facebook post the publication of the Wall Street Journal article dated 14th of August 2020 in a transparent manner to demonstrate their commitment to fight hate speech? Or if there have been any significant measures that you are aware of?
Post the publication, what we've largely seen is a statement from Ajit Mohan, who is the MD of Facebook India, who again distributes responsibility across the team, number one. And I don't think we have sufficient indication of what actions they've taken since then. But we do have information on what actions they took during the elections, at least on WhatsApp, which I mentioned earlier. I don't think that I mean, these are not decisions that a company would take in a hurried manner, because they have repercussions across the globe. Just the way laws take time, like I said, think of Facebook as a country, and think of the power that it wields and the responsibility that it has, and how one thing that happens in one part of the world can have an impact on some other part of the world.
Do you think, as an expert, that Facebook has the ability to benefit or provide advantage to a political party?
Ability, absolutely. We are dependent on the benevolence of platforms, including Facebook, to not harm our democracy. And they have the ability to allow other governments to do the same, and therefore we have to have very high expectations of neutrality, we have to have very high expectations of transparency, and there needs to be significant oversight on the functioning of large platforms.
Do you think that the application or the non-application of community standards by Facebook has had an adverse impact on free and fair elections in this country?
In this country, in terms of non-application of community standards, I would say that it has had an impact. We have, even today, there are groups that are alive and active on Facebook. There are groups that are alive and active on WhatsApp that spew, that send out hateful content. And I think Facebook needs to be more effective in implementing its community standards.
Lastly, that'll be the last question from my side, and then other members of the committee will certainly pose some questions. In your understanding, has Facebook India chose to selectively or differentially apply its community standards?
I have no evidence to indicate that, but like I mentioned, sir, there are news stories which indicate that.
There are news stories that indicate that. You don't have any personal knowledge of that?
No personal knowledge, no interaction, but selective implementation.
Yeah, because referring to selective implementation.
So I'm in a filter bubble. I'm in a bubble of people that I'm in contact with on Facebook, as are all of us. So unless there is a broader investigation into how it implements and how the numbers stack up also, I think that's the only way that we can get a better idea.
Lastly, do you think that Facebook has the capacity, the ability and the power to take steps to prevent and mitigate say a situation like the Delhi riots 2020?
I think Facebook needs to take those steps to prevent a situation like the Delhi riots to the best of its ability, as do all platforms. I don't think that the riots are only a function of what happens on social media, but they do have the capability of expanding that impact. And I think there's a positive side to the ability to campaign on social media as well. I ran a campaign for net neutrality, which one part of it was against Facebook, and I appreciate the ability of platforms to enable me to do that. I think that there are two sides to each story in that sense.
That's it from my side. If there are other members of the committee, आप में से कोई भी सवाल रखना चाहे तो आप पूछ सकते हैं, अगर कोई।
जी चेयरमैन साहब, अब सवाल तो काफ़ी सारे खड़े हो चुके हैं और सवाल सारे के सारे फेसबुक की तरफ ही खड़े हो रहे हैं। तो रिक्वेस्ट आपसे ये है कि जो एलिगेशंस लगाए गए और जो साफ तौर पे जाहिर हो रहे हैं, भी हम भी फेसबुक यूज़ करते हैं। दो बड़े पुख्ता तरीके की मिसाल हमने देखी है। एक पहले जो कंप्लेंटेड है जिनसे हमने बात की, उन्होंने बताया कि किस तरीके से यूएस के अंदर डोनाल्ड ट्रंप के ट्वीट तक को डाउन कर दिया गया। वो एक मिसाल थी एक निष्पक्ष तरीके से काम करने का सोशल मीडिया कंपनी द्वारा, और किस तरीके से फेसबुक सिर्फ बिजनेस अपना चमकाने के लिए, मिसाकी दास का स्पेशल सबने मेंशन किया है कि उनको रखा गया इस काम के लिए, लॉबिंग करने के लिए। ये मिसाल भी हमने देखी। तो मेरे को लगता है एक सख्त और कड़ा संदेश यहाँ से जाना चाहिए और फेसबुक के ऑफिशियल्स को बुला के उनसे इन सब मसलों पे जल्दी से जल्दी जवाब लेने चाहिए, क्योंकि आज फेसबुक को छोड़ देना या फेसबुक से हट जाना इसका सोल्यूशन नहीं है। इससे तो और ज़्यादा लोग वो कंट्रोल कर लेंगे सारे के सारे एपिसोड को। तो फेसबुक पे बने रहना और फेसबुक को ठीक करके जो कमियां हैं और अगर कुछ गलत किसी ने किया है, जिससे हमने देखा भाई दिल्ली को लेकर और पूरे भारत के अलग अलग शहरों में, इवन म्यांमार तक का एग्जांपल दिया कि वहाँ फेसबुक ने माफ़ी मांगी, तो यहाँ पर भी कुछ ऐसा मिसाल सेट होनी चाहिए और जवाब अब फेसबुक के ऑफिशियल से लेना चाहिए। थैंक यू।
क्या जो फेसबुक है, जो आपको नहीं लगता कि फेसबुक के जब कोई कमर्शियल ऐड फेसबुक के ऊपर देता है और मान लीजिए बिना पे करे कमर्शियल ऐड देता है फेसबुक के ऊपर, तो फेसबुक तुरंत उसको ब्लॉक कर देता है। तो अगर फेसबुक कमर्शियल ऐड को ब्लॉक कर सकता है तो क्या हेटफुल स्पीच को ब्लॉक कर सकता है, नहीं कर सकता है?
तो देखिए, कमर्शियल एड्स जो हैं उनकी क्वांटिटी कंपैरेटिवली बहुत ही कम है। अगर आप ये समझें कितने घंटों वीडियो रोज अपलोड होते हैं फेसबुक में, और ये जैसे कि मिस्टर फाकुदा ने बोला था, एक किलिंग क्राइस्टचर्च में लाइव ब्रॉडकास्ट हुई थी। इन चीज़ों को कंट्रोल करना प्लेटफॉर्म्स के लिए मुश्किल है, वो सीख रहे हैं और अभी हमारे पास इफेक्टिव टेक्नोलॉजी इतनी है नहीं। तो एड्स का जो कंट्रोल है वो एक अलग टीम करती होगी, मुझे नहीं पता एग्जैक्टली प्रोसेस क्या है, बट मेरा बस ये है कि मेरा कहना है कि इफेक्टिव कंट्रोल करना किसी भी प्लेटफॉर्म के लिए बहुत मुश्किल है, बिकॉज इतने मिलियंस यूजर्स उसमें हैं और उन सबकी स्पीच अगर आप उसको आप कंट्रोल कर सकते हैं, उसके साथ साथ सेंसरशिप कितनी होगी वो भी देखना होगा, क्योंकि ये सारे डिसीजंस ह्यूमंस को लेना होगा। अगर आप और मैं बैठ के फेसबुक के मैसेजेस देखने लगे तो हम दिन में 3000, 4000, 5000 से देख पाएंगे। जब मिलियंस ऑफ मैसेजेस जाते हैं फेसबुक पे, उनको एल्गोरिदम्स, ह्यूमन मॉडरेशन दोनों को देखना पड़ता है। एंड एल्गोरिदम्स परफेक्ट नहीं है, ह्यूमंस परफेक्ट नहीं है, तो इम्परफेक्शन तो आएगी ही आएगी। अगर उस चीज़ के लिए हम उनको लायबल रखते हैं तो उसमें कहीं ना कहीं स्लिप होगा। अगर इंटेंशनली किया है और अगर वो इंटेंशनैलिटी प्रूव कर सकते हैं एंड हमें वो एविडेंस चाहिए वो इंटेंशनैलिटी प्रूव करने के लिए, तब उनको लायबल रखना जरूरी है।
मेरे को मेरा रिसेंट एक्सपीरियंस है, ड्यूरिंग कोविड हमने एक होम्योपैथी की दवाई बांटना शुरू की और उसको हमने फेसबुक पे लाइव किया भाई इससे इम्यूनिटी बूस्ट होती है और ये आप हमसे आकर फ्री ले सकते हैं, और उसका हमने गलती से ब्रांड मेंशन कर दिया दवाई का। तो मेरे को फेसबुक से शाम पे वार्निंग आती है कि हमारी पॉलिसीज के खिलाफ है, आपका अकाउंट 3 साल के लिए सस्पेंड कर दिया जाएगा अगर आपने दोबारा से ऐसे किया। तो जैसे आप कहते हैं कि सब ह्यूमन ये सारा चेक है उसमें, तो ये चीज़ तो इमीडिएटली नोटिस कर ली गई, मेरे को आधे घंटे के अंदर मैसेज भी आ गया। और दूसरी तरफ इतने बड़े बड़े दंगे हो जा रहे हैं, ओपनली हेट स्पीचेस जा रही हैं, तो इन पे फिर कंट्रोल नहीं लगाया जा रहा, तो उससे तो साफ जाहिर हो ही रहा है।
सर देखिए, जो ब्रांड मेंशन है उसको शायद एक अलग टीम देखती होगी, मुझे एग्जैक्टली प्रोसेस पता नहीं है, बट मैं बिना एविडेंस के इंस्टेंसेस के ऊपर किसी को अक्यूज नहीं कर सकता। जहाँ तक मेरी अंडरस्टैंडिंग है, जहाँ तक
फेसबुक वाली जो है तो
सर जहाँ तक मेरी अंडरस्टैंडिंग है, अब हमारा जो पेज है, हमारा जो मीडिया नामा का पेज है, उसकी रीच फेसबुक पे बिल्कुल कम है, कर ही नहीं पा रहे हैं हम उसको इंक्रीज, क्योंकि हम पे ही नहीं कर रहे हैं बूस्ट करने के लिए। अब कुछ लोगों को तो फेसबुक का बिजनेस मॉडल ये है कि उसकी रीच कम करे, जो ब्रांड मेंशन है उनको फोर्स करे कि वो पे करे, बट जो ये होम्योपैथी और कोविड का जो सिचुएशन है उसमें शायद ऐसा भी हो सकता है कि सारे प्लेटफॉर्म्स कोविड-19 में उस टाइप के, जैसे कि नॉन रिकग्नाइज एलोपैथिक मेडिसिन जो हैं उनको सप्रेस, उनका कंटेंट सप्रेस करने की कोशिश कर रहे थे, जिससे लोग गलत फहमी में नहीं आए, बिकॉज होम्योपैथी एंड नॉर्मल क्योर्स की का साइंटिफिक वैलिडेशन इतना क्लियर नहीं है, तो वो भी एक रीज़न हो सकता है। रीज़न क्या है वो मुझे पता नहीं सर।
Thank you, Mr. Pava, for appearing before this committee. If this committee requires any further assistance from you, we will request you to appear before this committee again. Thank you so much for your cooperation. We will adjourn for 5 minutes. After that, we'll have the last witness for the day. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity, sir.
प्रशांत, क्वेश्चन द प्रिंट, ये लाइट क्यों चली गई यार? कौन कह रहा है?